distress among nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding of what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud of power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to take place, stand up, raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Then Jesus told them a parable. Look at the fig tree and all the trees. As soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is already near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. Truly, I tell you, this generation will not pass away until all things have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Be on guard, so that your hearts are not weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and the worries of this life, and that day catch you unexpectedly like a trap. For it will come upon all who live on the face of the whole earth. Be alert at all times, praying that you may have the strength to escape all these things that will take place, and to stand before the Son of Man. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
Now, if you will look in your bulletin, somewhere there is a light the Advent candle, and Judy is going to come up here to light the first Advent candle. Where is that? I do believe it's at the bottom of the first page, and Jeff, we're just going to do the first verse and the refrain. It starts about the second candle and stop.
Okay, can we start now?
We're ready for you to start now.
Yeah.
Oh, Judy, I need you to stay here.
Okay.
Because we have another Advent candle. No, that's the other one. Okay, just go with you. Just go. Sorry, folks, we got a little glitch here. And then go to, once you're on the video, you just go to the so. And then, no, it's that's it. Has begun. We have started on the way. Christmas Day. Candle, candle, burning bright, shining into the night. Candle, candle, burning bright, fill our hearts with Christmas light. That's the end of it. You're going to get used to this because we're doing it obviously before Sunday. Yeah, well, consider that one a rehearsal. Now I need you to hold this Advent candle. The children in the parish received this, or hopefully received this week, and hopefully they've made their Advent candle. If not, or their Advent wreath. If not, I encourage them to do so. With it came this little booklet, and starting today, each day you put one sticker on, and because this is Sunday, you peel off the candle that says 1, and see, I get to do this because I'm a kid at heart. And this says 1, and you put the candle, the lit candle, a little loose, but right like that. And then each day, can you tip this just a little bit so people can see it? Each day there's a circle, and you find, like tomorrow, you'll find number 2. And in your booklet, you'll find the sticker and put the sticker on number 2. And each Sunday, we will light this Advent candle as well. Why don't you just put that on the altar so that the children can see and enjoy it? Now, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. So, welcome to this first Sunday of Advent. And on this first Sunday of Advent, the children also had, don't you wish you were a kid? I'm so glad that I get these copies. You know, maybe we should just run them off for everybody. I have a feeling that would have been a good idea. But they have this, and then they have a little worksheet on how to draw St. Andrew. Because this is the saint that we're featuring this Sunday. Next Sunday, we will be featuring St. Nicholas. The third Sunday, we'll be featuring Santa Lucia. The last Sunday of Advent, it may not be a saint because I have about 5 children's books that I love to read. So we may be learning about the spider or who knows what. But St. Andrew, first of all, who knows who St. Andrew was in the Bible? Give you a clue. Jesus is walking along the lake and he spies 2 fishermen. And their names are Andrew and Simon. And they are brothers. So St. Andrew and Simon becomes Peter. Remember the St. Peter? Well, that's the favorite saint of the Roman Catholic Church. So St. Peter's brother was Andrew. And Andrew and Peter were the first of the disciples called by Jesus. They were fishermen. And Jesus tells them he's going to make them fishers of people instead of just of fish. Jesus obviously is crucified, is resurrected, sends into heaven. The disciples are left with themselves. They, at Pentecost Sunday, become ennobled to stop being fraidy cats and start spreading the gospel to the world. St. Andrew does exactly that. And for his efforts, he gets arrested, convicted, and they're going to crucify him. And he says, "Do not crucify me the way my Lord was crucified." And so, if you look right here, you will see the cross of St. Andrew, which is an X, because he did not want to be crucified with a cross like Jesus, a straight up and down cross. Now, that cross is called the cross of St. Andrew. What nation has that cross as part of their flag? Scotland. It is Scottish. Thank you, patience, and thank you, Jeff. It is part of, and if you think of St. Andrew's Golf Course, St. Andrew's everything in Scotland, he becomes the patron saint of Scotland. Now that is not because St. Andrew went to Scotland. That is because legend says that a couple hundred years after he was crucified and died, his bones were shipped to Scotland. It's fine to believe that. The Scots love that. So that's how St. Andrew became the patron saint of Scotland. And good for St. Andrew. And that is his cross, which is on the Scottish flag. We have the children have 2 other pictures, a kilt and a bagpipe, typical things of the Scottish people. So now the issue is, so that's interesting, Chris, but what does that have to do with the Episcopal Church in the United States of America. Well, what is this that is in all your pews called? A prayer book. Y'all got that? We got prayer books, right? If you were in the prayer book is like probably more used than the Bible by a lot of people. It's a wonderful resource. It has all of the liturgies of the church, all of the services of the church. It has the entire book of Psalms, and it has lots of extra prayers that you can use when you're needing to pray. If you're upset or concerned or worried, I recommend grab a prayer book, open to the book of Psalms, just start reading until you find something that quiets you. If you are concerned, go to the back to all the prayers that are listed. If you can't go to sleep at night, see, the prayer book even has a solution to that, because you can go to the far back of it and you can read something called the 39 Articles. I can't find it right now. But the 39 Articles of Faith, which is sure to put you to sleep. If you want to know when Easter is going to be in 2050, there's a little table in here that can find that for you, all kinds of useful things. Now, at the time of the American Revolution, the church that is ours was called the Church of England, right? The English colonists had come to America. They had brought, not the pilgrims were running from the Church of England people, but other people from England brought the church with them. In 1776, something happened in this country. Who remembers? 1776. Yes, I remember it well. 1776, yeah.
It was
The
born.
American Revolution. And guess who won the American Revolution? The English or the Americans? The Americans. I mean, we know that, right? Well, now imagine that it's now 1780 and you are a faithful member of Christ Church, Alexandria, Virginia, but it's called the Church of England, and you just won the American Revolution. In terms of evangelism, how effective do you think that's going to be? Inviting the new country people to go to the Church of England. You know, they don't want that. So the people who were worshipers of the Church of England said, you know, we need a little revolution of our own. We need to become, we still want our ties with the Church of England, but we want to be an independent church. And so they met in convention, sort of like the Declaration or the Constitution of the United States. And they developed a constitution for the new church and named it the Protestant Episcopal Church of the United States of America, just so that we could have the longest name of any church in history, I guess. But again, wanting to keep their sacramental roles and stay connected with the ancient traditions all the way back to Jesus, they wanted to have what is called Apostolic Succession. And I'm not going to get into a discussion with you whether or not this actually has worked for 2021 years or 2020 years. But according to Apostolic Succession, every bishop can trace his consecration back to one of the 12 apostles. That's what Apostolic Succession is. And so, in order to do that, any new bishop has to be ordained by 3 current bishops, just in case one of them, you know, was kind of an outlier and wasn't really correctly, you know, church loves the number 3, right? Trinity. So you have to have 3 current bishops to consecrate a new bishop. So they've met, the Church of England in the United States has met, it's changed its name to the longest name there is of any church in history, and now it needs to elect some bishops. And it elects actually 3 bishops. One I don't think ever gets consecrated, but the first of the bishops is a man named Samuel Seaver. And so where is he going to go in this 1780s new nation to find 3 bishops to consecrate him? Well, he goes to England first, right? Because Church of England. What do you suppose the reception of the newly defeated English are when Samuel shows up and says, hey folks, I need to be consecrated as a bishop so that we can form our own church here in America and get out from under you.
Isn't the king actually the head of the Church of England?
Yes, yes. So, that does not go over well, does it? I mean, they keep, Samuel is like wandering around England for like a year trying to find 3 bishops that will consecrate him. Well, meanwhile, if you know European history, you know that Scotland and Wales have been controlled by England for years, and they have always been about as happy about being controlled by England as the United States was. And so Samuel finally, in a last-ditch effort, travels north from England to Scotland. And he says, hey guys, you got 3 bishops up here that were duly consecrated. So how about if you consecrate me as bishop for the new American church? They have just had their own revolution and formed the Church of Scotland. Isn't that nice and convenient of them? And so that was one up to the Church of England. They go, consecrating a bishop for the Americas, that'll be a number 2 on our defeat the English list. Well, they had just developed a new prayer book. And they say to Sam, because they're some shrewd people, they said, Sam, we will consecrate you a bishop for your new church, the Protestant Episcopal Church of the United States of America, the longest name you could come up with, if you will take our prayer book back to the United States and use our prayer book as the basis for your prayer book instead of using the Church of England's prayer book. Most Episcopalians assume that our prayer book came straight from the Church of England, and we just kind of eliminated the prayers for the king or the queen, and but no. Samuel Seabury duly says, I'll be glad to take your prayer book back to the United States, the new nation, and I will do my best to see that we base our prayer book on your prayer book. They say, great, they consecrate Samuel. America now has 1 duly consecrated bishop in the Protestant Episcopal Church of the United States of America, which we now just call the Episcopal Church, which is much shorter and makes a lot more sense. And so he brings the Scottish Book of Common Prayer. And indeed, our current prayer book is based on the Scottish prayer book of 1780 something, instead of the English prayer book. Not a whole lot of differences, but it's always interesting. Now there's another story as to how we get 2 more bishops here. The second bishop is a man named William White. He's from Pennsylvania. Samuel Seabury was from Connecticut. If you ever look at demographics of the number of Episcopalians in any state, guess what state has the most Episcopalians percentage-wise? Connecticut. So I don't think that Pennsylvania is number 2, but William White was the second bishop consecrated. And it's been a long time since I took my church history classes back in seminary. And quite honestly, I believe the 3rd bishop that is consecrated is the bishop from the state of New York. I think it might have been William Hobart, but he wasn't the original one, because the original 3rd bishop that was chosen he died before he made the trip back and forth. Now we have to remember this trekking to England to get consecrated. You're talking about 6 to 9 month journey. And so Samuel Seabury, when he went to England, he was gone from the United States for a couple of years, because it took him 3 or 4 months to get there. Then he wandered around trying to find 3 bishops. Then he wandered up to Scotland, had to negotiate with them, get consecrated. Then he had to get back to the boat, and then he had to sail back here. And so So that's the roots, and that's why I chose St. Andrew for our first Advent saint because St. Andrew's Day is this Tuesday, and so he fits in. I also did that because I think that during Advent, it's good to have some fun. And so I think that if you look at the readings, like today's readings, they're all about the end times. And I know that there are some people that really get off about the end times and love to speculate about them. I think the best thing about those readings is to remember that Jesus tells us, focus on being and doing right here, right now. And so I'd rather focus on the Advent saints who show us how to be and do right now so that we don't need to worry about what's going to happen to us at the end of the world or what's going to happen to our world at the end of the world. We can trust God to do what God is going to do and to take care of us. So, if you're a child, have fun with your things. Oh, and by the way, each week there in the email blast, there will also be a recipe. This week's recipe was for shortbread because shortbread is a great Scottish tradition. Next week, we are going to have a recipe from Jan, our resident baker, in honor of the bake sale coming up, and also because the St. Nicholas recipes that I found all call for yeast, and I'm not a good enough cook to deal with yeast. And I also have to tell you that last year when I did this at All Saints Pontiac, I found a really good recipe for a coffee cake, and I thought, well, that'd be nice because they were all older people. The problem was it made 4 loaves about this big. And we had wonderful pictures of people's kitchens that have been absolutely decimated because they had taken out every pan and cookie sheet and everything that they could find to try to fit all this yeast dough. And you had to braid it and do a bunch of other stuff. So we're going to do a bar cookie or a slice and bake cookie for next week. Then for Santa Lucia, which will be the 3rd Sunday of Advent, there's a special recipe. So families or each of us, during the week, if you didn't make shortbread already, if you want to try it, make yourself some shortbread, or you can go to the grocery store and there's a thing, what is it, Walker's? Shortbread in the red plaid, and buy some and eat it up and say, I'm doing this all for St. Andrew and for the first Sunday and first week of Advent. For the adults, you have a reflection book that hopefully came to you in the mail this week, and hopefully you will take some time each day to read and reflect on that. So if you will turn to the inside of your bulletin, we will stand and reaffirm our faith in the words of the Nicene Creed.